what's up, everybody? Welcome to the Guitar Underground. I'm your host, Neil Santos, the creator of the Pentatonic Way and friend to all guitarists worldwide. Today, we're going to talk about that Hendrix style of playing. We're going to use 3 chords and just kind of focus on, like, what did he do? So, like, what if the secret to that raw, emotional Hendrix sound wasn't about playing faster, but about where you anchor your hand, right? By locking your pentatonic patterns into these 3 foundational triads, you unlock the ability to target those sweet notes every single time. It works every time, 60% of the time, it works every time. And this is how you stop practicing and you start playing. Maybe that's a little cheesy sounding, but it's the truth. So we're going to check that out. This episode's all about simplifying that Hendrix style soloing using a 3-chord framework, like I said. Let's try it. Hey everybody, how's it going? Welcome to the Guitar Underground. I'm Neil Santos, your host, creator of the Pentatonic Way and friend to all guitarists worldwide. What if the secret to that raw, emotional Hendrix sound wasn't about playing faster, but about where you anchor your hand? And by locking your pentatonic patterns into 3 foundational triads, you can unlock the ability to target those sweet notes every time. And this is how you stop practicing and you start actually playing, right? This episode is about simplifying that Hendrix style soloing using a 3-chord framework instead of trying to memorize endless licks of his, you know? We'll show you how to fish instead of just feeding you fish on the guitar. Does that make sense? So Hendrix wasn't thinking about giant theory textbooks when he played. He was reacting to chord movements and actually the sound and the feel of the song, you know? Like, he knew theory, I'm sure, but that's not where he was at when he was playing. He was more emotional, more empathetic, you know, emoting energy and being cool as hell at the same time. And I think that helps. I can't teach you to be as cool as Hendrix because I'm obviously not as cool as Hendrix, but I can show you a little bit of what he does on the guitar. Yeah, cool. So most players, I guess, treat the pentatonic scale and soloing like, analogy would be like dumping paint on a canvas. They just kind of go for it wherever. They're throwing notes out there. I'm not entirely sure if it goes with the chord or not. But Hendrix is more like someone coloring inside our lines and then around the shapes. You know, like he understood how to break the rules to make it work for him and, you know, realize his vision of what he wanted to hear and what he wanted to get across emotionally. So in this episode, we're going to look at 5 reasons Hendrix sounded like he did on the guitar when he played pentatonics. And we're going to look at 5 actionable tips that you can use to incorporate it into your playing and maybe start sounding a bit more Hendrixy. All right? So yeah, let's get into it. But first, I have been reminded, if you enjoy these kinds of practical guitar conversations, make sure you subscribe, follow the podcast so you don't miss the future episodes of the Guitar Underground. That's an easy and free way to help support the channel, which I would appreciate. All right, so let's get into it. Point 1. Hendrix solos were more chord-aware than scale-aware. And what I mean by that is he often visualized chord shapes inside the pentatonic scales, right? The scale was the framework, but the chords gave his phrases direction, right? His lead playing frequently outlined chord tones, you know, mini triads sort of things, double stops, and just chord fragments. So, like an intermediate player practices A minor pentatonic for years, right? but solos the same exact way over every chord, you know? So everything sounds the same. You're not being intentional with your playing, right? You're treating every chord like it's the same emotional moment when it's not. Like you can really wring a lot of emotion when the chord changes out of your phrases and whatnot. So when you start seeing the chord targets, your phrases start sounding intentional instead of random. So, point 2, 3 chords create 3 emotional gravity points, and you could add any number there. But like you have 5 chords, 5 emotional gravity points. Each chord is put there to create a feeling, right? Not just tension and release, but each one has an emotional feeling in the way that it reacts to the next chord. Today we're going to be working with the 3 chords, little foreshadowing, I guess you'd call it, in the old script writing business. Anyway, A, and you got D, and then you got E and A. Right? So each of those has its own powerful sort of vibe to it, right? And if I go from D to A, that is a very different sound than if I went E to A. Right? Or if I went E to D. So why would you solo over all 3 of those things, any of those in the same way, right? Like you would want to highlight each of those chords. It's a opportunity to utilize that chord's superpowers, or whatever you want to call them, characteristic sound into your phrase, right? So once you start doing that, then your solos don't all sound the same because you're being guided, I guess, by the characteristics of that chord and really highlighting it. And then everything sounds like it goes together rather than like your solos floating on top of the chords or something, which is a cool sound too, but not always. You don't want to use it all the time. You want to be you want to be able to choose that if you not have it your default because it's all you know. So you don't want to be fighting the chords with some scale that doesn't match any of the chords. You want to kind of be in the middle, playing and interacting with the chords. So let me see. Excuse me. It's very early here. Everybody's still asleep in the house, so trying to keep it down. But coffee, yes. This episode is brought to you by coffee. Oh yeah. Let's see. So, point number 3. Hendrix used shapes overlaps constantly. Right? He blended the pentatonic boxes. He played chord shapes, rhythm fills, lead phrases. Like everything kind of overlapped all together. He'll use the cage system and, like I said, those mini chord fragments. And then where the pentatonics overlapped them, and he played it all at once, all within one bar. Like intermediate players, beginner players, often they separate rhythm is here and then lead is here, right? Like in your never the twain shall meet, right? But Hendrix would just jump from rhythm playing right into lead to rhythm again to like somewhere in between those two. It was all one thing that blended into this like tapestry of beautiful guitar sounds, right? And I think that's what he's known for. when you hear him play, he's playing, he'll hit the chord, he'll do like a cool little, ornamental sort of thing with some pentatonics and then bend a note and then go back to the chord, all while he's singing, right? Maybe play some sort of bass line on the guitar, some riff. Very cool. It was all one connected thing for him, which I think that is the goal. That's when you're really playing the guitar in a way. You're not just playing something you memorized, the riff or this or that. You're kind of creating in the moment. You're riffing. I don't know. I always think of it like a conversation or like a conversation. Like if you're chatting with somebody, rather than just like, okay, this is my serious talking right now. I'm talking serious. Or with this, I'm just joking. We're just joking all the time, But it's more exciting when you're talking to someone and then they tell a joke and then they say, yeah, but seriously, I heard this interesting thing and now you're learning something. And then they tell another joke and now you say something. Now they're emotionally connected to you and they're really feeling what you say. So this like richness to the conversation, as opposed to just one sort of like one. What does someone say? One trick winter stick or whatever. I don't know. I don't know if that's a thing, but it rhymes, so it must be true. But yeah, so blending it all together, that's so much a part of it. And then point 4, the magic's usually in small movements, right? Hendrix phrasing often comes from a bent note or sliding into some chords or emphasizing a tiny melodic movement. Not so much shredding, I mean, he was fast and stuff, but that wasn't the most memorable stuff I think that he did. Like I think of that lick in Purple Haze. I had to learn it back in the day, and I was learning the solos, and I was like, really? That's what he plays? And it's just this, and it's so silly. I think he's playing an E, right? I forget the solo right now, but I remember the part where he's just doing a major 7 to the 5. He was just doing that for a while. Listen to it. You can hear it in there. I don't know the exact rhythm of it, but that's the gist of it, is he's just doing this. And it's probably so he could bring his hand in the hair. But that's such a cool sound over that, And it sounds like a childish taunt to me, like neener, 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 neener. And that's always inspired me to be like, it doesn't have to be so complicated, and it doesn't have to sound beautiful all the time or intimidating or like sad. It can be fun, and it doesn't have to be complicated. And that gets an emotion across, you know what I mean? Like, so I took that as an inspiration and permission to just kind of be more free, have more fun with it, and not be pressured to, play even more notes or be this or be that, be whatever. Just play and have fun with it, right? And that's what it's all about. And that's what it's all about. Sorry. I may have some more coffee and maybe my brain will stop acting up on us. So, yeah, instead of thinking more notes and faster runs and advanced scales, just make it conversational and fun, like we were talking about, not mathematical. So point 5, pentatonic freedom comes from seeing connections between the boxes. And I feel like we all know this. If you learn the first shape, but none of the others, you're going to be kind of trapped in that box, right? It's obvious. But if you learn the others, and then you learn the chords that go along with them, and you can like see it all around the neck, all of a sudden you have this powerful roadmap, right? All a framework that you can just play around in. So I cannot encourage you enough to just, if you know the 5 shapes of the pentatonics, take the time and just figure them out. And then once you do that, start figuring out how they connect to the chords that you know, the bar chords, the open chords, and just see how they start connecting. And then you're going to be able to just have fun. You know, like I think about it as instead of a maze, which it might feel like before that, after that, it next seems like a playground. And then you're just playing. You can just jump and run and twist and do whatever you want. At that point, it's up to you to like bring your creativity to it. But if you can see the notes where they are, that becomes easier. You can just try stuff and it's all going to sound good because it's all the pentatonics and it all is, like we were saying, going right with the chords rather than floating above or fighting them underneath. And, you know, then you're really playing. Then that's the real part where you're playing the guitar, not just stuff you memorized, right? And that's what the Hendrix thing is. And then you do what he does and start doing the chords and the licks and the fills all together. But you have to get that sort of understanding of the connection of the 5 boxes and the chords first. And it's well worth the time. I'm telling you, take the time and figure that out. And yeah, I think it's the best time. It's the most high impact thing you could do on the guitar. It's time well spent. Anyway, all right. So those are 5 reasons or 5 things about Hendrix's playing and why he sounds the way he does. And so this is the pitch section of the podcast where I tell you the one thing I've noticed over the years is that players tend to get stuck at for very different reasons, right? Some players are overwhelmed by too much information. Some can visualize the shapes, but they struggle musically. And others have good ears, but no fretboard structure like we're talking about. So that's actually why I created the Pentatonic Way personality quiz. It only takes a couple minutes, and it helps identify the specific type of player you are and what may actually be holding you progress back. After that, you get a free 3-lesson email course designed around the kind of help you specifically need. So you can check that out at pentatonicway.com/personality. And on a side note, I actually just spent the last week and a half revamping all of those email lessons to try to make them even more valuable and helpful. So I hope you like them. All right, back to the episode. Okay, so now we're going to look at 5 actionable tips that you can use in your playing today to help you kind of nurture and develop this Hendrix-y sort of way of playing. All right? So what we're going to do is, for the tip 1, is we're going to solo over 3 chord tones. 3 chords, 3 chord tones, right? So we said it was A, D, and E. So here are the chords. And now I can just focus on, let's keep it simple and just keep it on the bottom 4 strings. And we know that the bottom of this chord is that. And then we got the D. And this is the bottom of that. And if you're listening, that's 7, 7, 7, 5. And the first one, the A, was 7, 6, 5, 5. And then the E, that's going to be on the bottom strings, 6, 4, 5, 4. All right, so let me see what I can come up with there. And the exercise is simply to try to just use those notes, all right? Don't worry about the pentatonics. These are very simple to see because they're in the chords that we're using. All right, so let me see what I can come up with.
Whoops, I threw in a pentatonic.
Yeah, so you can see that automatically now you can hear what chords I'm playing over without the chords even there. That's the whole point. Like, you want to be supporting the harmony with your playing as well as whoever's playing harmony, another guitarist or a keyboard player or whatever, horns. You should also be supporting the harmony. And that's where it can get confusing if you're just playing one scale over everything. So that is a great exercise you can do. Try to just keep it simple. It doesn't, I wasn't shredding out. I guess I tried to keep the rhythm of what I was playing similar to the groove I was playing, that which seems very Hendrixy, that sort of vibe, like Rolling Stone or I don't know, Wild Thing. They're all kind of like that. Boom, cha, cha, boom, boom, cha. Yeah, so try to keep that in your playing too. It'll make it easier to keep track of where you are rhythmically in the groove, right? All right, cool. So that is way one. Practice that for a bit, only hitting the root, the fifth, and the third. Now, tip 2 is do the same thing, but instead use pentatonic scales, right? So you're staying in one area, and what we're going to do now is apply pentatonic scale shapes to those chords. So for A, at the 5th fret, we're doing that if you're listening to the podcast, hi. We're going to do that A at the 5th fret is the bar chord, that 5, 7, 7, 6, 5, 5. Now the pentatonic scale that goes with that is the second shape. Right? So that's 5, 7, 4, 7, 4, 7, 4, 6, 5, 7, 5, 7. All right. And then for the D, we're doing that shape at the 5th. It's 5, 7, 7, 7. And what we're going to do there is play the 5th shape of the pentatonic, which is from the top, 5, 7, 5, 7, 4, 7, 4, 7, 5, 7, 5, 7. Now that works with that chord. I won't get too deep into the weeds about why that is. I have courses about that, and we talk about this in the membership. But just trust me that chord works with that scale, all right? And then for the E, we're doing a kind of unusual chord voicing for that, just to stay in the same shape, in the same area of the neck, I mean. So what we want to do there is we're playing with your pinky, starting on the A string. You got 7, 6, 4, 5, and then 4 again on the E string. That's a really cool major chord. It's basically the foundation of your D chord down here, your open D, and we're just extending it up. So cool. Then the pentatonic shape that goes with that is the 4th one. Starts at the 4th fret, and we go 4, 7, 4, 7, 4, 6, 4, 6, 5, 7, 4, 7. All right. So when you jam like that, now it's going to be simple, not simple, but similar to what we did with the first one. We were targeting the chord tones, but now you can just be free. Like this is the playground I was talking about, right? So now I'll jam on this one. Here we go. Right? Hopefully you could hear the chords changing there. And it's just so much fun. Like I could do whatever I want, and then I hear a thing, and I'll repeat that, and then like, oh, maybe I'll repeat that over the next shape. So there's just so much you can do with it. I can't express enough. It's so much freedom comes from being able to just see those shapes and then just have fun with them and then just explore them and stuff. And that's what I think is so beautiful about music. It's just, you can just escape into this world of playing over 3 chords and just being like, this is the best thing ever. I'm not thinking about my bills. I'm not thinking about the lawn or whatever. Just guitar and how great it feels and sounds. So cool. Tip number 3. You want to connect your rhythm in the lead, right? Like this is what we were talking about with Hendrix, So maybe when you're practicing, play 1 chord stab and then a lick, then a little chord fragment, and then a phrase or something. So let me try that real quick. I don't know. I'll try to get all 4 of those in. So here's A. I don't know. I'll switch chord. I can't fit them all into A and then all into B, D, and then all into E. I'll try to do them in this order, though. I'll just follow this list I have. So. Nope. You're supposed to watch the guitar, not my guitar faces. All right, let's try this. That's the idea. I fell away from this list. I don't think that it makes sense to do them just in an order, right? This is just a punch list of things you can do while you're playing. Like it wouldn't actually sound like chord stab, lick, chord fragment, 1 phrase, move on, chord stab, lick, blah, blah, blah. No, that doesn't really work. Because then that just restricts you too much. Because when you're playing and you're improvising, you might hear something different, like, oh, I should play this phrase here. But on the list, it's like I'm supposed to do a chord stab or whatever, right? All right, so that doesn't work. But try to mix those in. Try to switch from one thing to another and keep it interesting, keep it flowing. Yeah. So tip number 4, and this is always a good one, but not the easiest. Practice singing before playing, all right? And this is where you have to kind of slow things down in your practice and break it apart. So you hum a phrase before playing the lick. Try, and then if you're using the Pentatonics, they'll probably be right in there, right? So I'll try this. I'll play the chord, try to hum a little melody of it that I think feels like a pentatonic, and then I'll try to find it on the Pentatonics. And this is going to help you connect your ears to your fingers and your imagination. All right, so here we go. Here's A. All in the pentatonic. Here's D. There we go.
something like that. And then E.
And then pretty cool. So I'm finding that doing that, my ear and my imagination are doing something a little different than my fingers would technically do. Like they're jumping notes, skipping notes, which is interesting, you know? So practicing this really helps kind of not only build the connection, but let you see where the difference between what you hear in your head and what your fingers typically do, because my fingers are used to playing pentatonics in a sequence, like, right? Like, right, for E. But my head went, it skipped this note and just, which is cool, you know, like that gives you another option or insight into your own guitar psyche, if you will. So yeah, that's tip number 4. Record yourself. Not record yourself. That's another one I always say, but sing before you play. So play the chord so you have like a reference point. Sing and then see where that is in the pentatonics, and I bet you'll find it. All right, tip 5. Highlight the chord changes, right? Land on, every time a chord changes and the notes in the scale change, land on that nearby chord tone that's switched between the shapes, the pentatonic shapes. They bend into it, slide into it, double stop into it, but make sure to hit it right when that chord changes. And that's going to really identify that your playing is syncing up to the chords and stuff. So let me try that real quick. Same progression. Right there, like that's an example. Going from E to A. And G. And then a big jump to E. That's a third of E. And then here to L. Now I went from A to D by sliding that third of A into the D. Landing on that A for the first one. Sorry, whoops. But once you start to see those 3 shapes, whatever they are that you're using for the chords, then you start to see where they move, where they change. And then those are your opportunity areas to really like to get that characteristic sound of the chord, or that superpower of the chord of the moment, and use that to like move your phrase ahead, to keep the thought flowing, keep that idea going, which is cool. So focus on where those notes change, right? So the 5 tips, let me go back in my little notes here. Try to start, like level it up. Do only the 3 chord tones that are right in the chord, right? Practice that for a bit, see what you can come up with. And then take the next level and start to incorporate or change those triads to pentatonics. You're only adding 2 notes per chord, and they should look very similar to the chord after you start to get used to this approach. Tip 3, connect your rhythm in the lead. There's no division. Try to just flow from one to the next. You know, this chord, lick, phrase, back to a chord. Tip 4, practice singing before playing. So play the chord, sing a little melody, and then try to find it in your pentatonics. And tip 5 is to highlight those chord changes. When you get used to seeing these pentatonic shapes all in one spot, really notice where they differ. And those are your chances to like outline the chord. All right? Cool. So the goal with this lesson wasn't to teach you a bunch of Hendrix licks. All right? So if that's what you're looking for, I'm sorry. But the real breakthrough, I feel, is understanding how chord movement shaped his pentatonic approach to phrasing, right? And that's what I tried to show you. And that's what I tried to teach out in the world, because I feel like it's the most important thing you can learn. And important. What's important? That's a opinion of me saying this is important, but I feel like it's the most high impact thing you can learn. You know, like I know everybody's busy is what I'm trying to say. And if you're going to spend time working on something on the guitar, working on this is going to give you the most benefit, the most bang for your buck across everything you play. So that's what I'm trying to say. Yeah. So if you've been feeling boxed in or frustrated or like your solos sound the same, you're definitely not alone. But most players don't need more information. They need a clearer way to organize what they already know. And I think that's where you are. I'm looking at you. So I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Are you someone that thinks more in scales or more in chord shapes? And what Hendrix style phrase or solo really opened up your eyes to this idea? And what's your favorite Hendrix solo anyway? I'd love to hear that. And if this episode helped you think about the fretboard maybe differently in a little way, make sure you follow and subscribe and share it with another guitar player who's feeling stuck too, okay? They'll love you for it. Yeah, the pentatonic scale becomes powerful the moment you stop treating it like a box and start treating it like a conversation with your chords. All right, that's my mic drop. Mic drop. Anyway, I hope you guys have a great week. It was great hanging with you. And yeah, keep on playing, and I will see you next time. All right, at the Guitar Underground, I'm Neil Santos saying, keep on picking.